Most schools in the Philippines have reopened for face-to-face classes after a 2.5-year COVID-19 shutdown. All institutions will resume in-person learning by November. Now, the extended school closure, well, it's threatening to worsen basic literacy standards. A World Bank report says 9 in 10 Filipino children aged 10 struggle to read a simple text. CNA's Buena Bernal reports on the challenges that remain for the country's education system.
It's the first day of the school year for these Filipino students here in the Philippine capital, Manila. They join millions of students across the country to trickle back to schools for face-to-face lessons, the first of many steps in their learning recovery journey.
This crowd behind me is part of the 8,000 student population attending this primary school. Now, for this school to be able to cater to that many students, a classroom needs to be divided to 2 sections. Parents, however, say that they're grateful for in-person learning as home-based learning deprives students of a dynamic engagement between teacher and student.
For most of the past 2 pandemic years, Filipino students relied on hybrid learning from home. This came at a disadvantage to children without crucial learning tools like tablet, computer, or smartphones, or their guardians who could not afford to skip work and help them with their studies at home. But the challenges for the Philippines education system run much deeper than pandemic-induced learning losses. The Philippines has the second lowest enrollment rate in primary schools and the second lowest student access to a teacher across ASEAN, excluding Myanmar, in 2018. This might threaten to leave long-term scars on the Philippines' economy that's reliant on sending skilled workers abroad.
Using pre-pandemic learning data, we saw that we, the Philippines, needed to at least double our education spending to catch up to the global minimum learning standards. Now, imagine how much more is needed to address the 90.9% learning poverty in the country.
Experts urge boosting IT infrastructure in primary schools to enhance digital literacy.
Program for International Student Assessment, or PISA, is an indicator closely monitored by education experts. Now, PISA is taken by a student through a computer. And in 2018, the Philippines had the second lowest scores among 78 countries in terms of reading, math, and science. Digital literacy is important not just for the test, but for the future labor competitiveness of students in a digital economy.
Students like 11-year-old Ayana rely on smartphones for research, having no other gadget.
Yes po, nag-gadget ako, pero dapat on time po. Tsaka dapat po tapos daw po yung gawain, tsaka sa pag-aaral po. Pagturo po nila mama, sabi po kasi nila, unahin daw po muna yung pag-aaral bago yung cellphone. Swerte ka po kung meron kang laptop or computer.
She prefers face-to-face classes to online lessons as she learns better that way.
Mas may explain po ng teacher kung ano po yung gagawin tsaka kung paano po sasagutan. Yung iba po kasi mag-join nga po pero naka-off cam po, hindi po nakikinig. Lagi ko pong iniintindi kasi syempre po pag bumagsak po ako, syempre madi-disappoint po parents ko.
Despite the challenges, Ayana is diligent and spends time on her own to study. She also takes care of her siblings while her mother is out at work.
Hindi naman po kasi lumaki naman po kaming dalawa ng kapatid ko na nasa trabaho po si mama, na kaming dalawa lang po. Kami ng dalawa po naiwan sa bahay.
State auditors said 8% of the laptops and 30% of the tablets in a government IT project were not given out to students and teachers last year when they were most needed due to procedural issues, a thought that brought single mother Richelle Mangampo to tears.
Katulad sa amin, mahirap. Malaking tulong kung ako sakali mabigyan para sa mga anak ko. Kasi kung ako lang, hindi naman talaga ko kayang bumili. Kasi wala rin kami. Kahit nga sa pagkain, hirap din. Hirap kami nun, pero tiniis namin para lang makapag-aral po yung mga anak ko.
I first met Richelle when her daughter, Jillian, returned to school last year after quitting her studies during the pandemic. For Filipino students like Jelian or Yana, it is certainly not lack of discipline, but systemic problems in the education sector that, if left unaddressed, will push them behind. Juan Bernal, CNA, Manila.